Welcome back. 8 o'clock hour here on Friday Farside, KWVH, Wimberley Valley Radio. Wanted to say a great big thank you at the top of the hour to all of our underwriters who support our wonderful cause here in Wimberley. 6 years running this. We're doing a lot, and we've done a lot, and we really want to say thanks.
We've come a long way, baby.
Yeah, we couldn't do it without y'all's help, and every business and individual underwriter that gives to the station keeps our doors open, keeps our systems working. We know this morning we're having a couple of technology issues, but we're working on it. Brock Thomas, our king of duct tape and baling wire, is back there figuring it out. He's an engineer, he said. He's an engineer. That's right.
Yeah. While we've got one of the leading engineer minds, I think, in the studio with us right now. I'm so excited.
Take it away, sis. You got it. It's your duty.
I am so proud and excited to have Zach Staples with us because Zach I'm going to just introduce you a little bit to our listening audience.
Cool.
He's the founder and CEO of Fathom5, which is an industrial technology company based in Austin, but making waves all around the world. I know that you guys build operating systems for the next generation of industrial technologies. So, and there's a quote there that I think that you've used a few times. Share with us, Zach. What is that?
We joke around all the times. When I say that on an airplane, to the person sitting next to me, they look at me like I've got three heads. So now I just say, we build things at the intersection of AI and grease. So
I love it. And as if that solves that dilemma of understanding. Yeah, it really doesn't. It's like, okay, that brings up a whole new set of questions. Like, what?
Seriously, just reading the overview on LinkedIn, I had so many questions. Yeah. And, looking at it, when you start talking about things like that we live in a cyber physical world and that there really is this 4.0, this industrial 4.0. I want to unpack that, and I want to unpack some of the things that y'all are doing, but we do need to mention, of course, that Zach Staples is a local. Even though I know you're all often flying around the world and in all other, I never know where I'm going to find you. But I'm so glad. When was it you guys moved to Wimberley?
Yeah, we moved here in June of 2018. So I kind of founded the company in January, and I was out in Silicon Valley, and I was retiring from the U.S. Navy at that point. So I paid taxes for about 2 months in California and realized that was a stupid idea.
I'm out of here.
I'm coming home. The real story, the honest real story is, I'll be really candid, is I just launched the company and I got invited to come back and give a talk at South by Southwest, which, kicks off here recently.
Today.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And my wife Alyssa and I were riding from Austin through the hill country, frankly on Elder Hill Road. And she looks at me in the car. It's beautiful. It's a perfect day. The wildflowers were out. The wildflowers are a little late this year.
They are late, yep.
But, it was a perfect day. The sun was setting, the wildflowers out, rolling hills, kind of coming around Elder Hill Road. And Alyssa looks at me and says, from my naval career, she's like, I've been following you around the world for like 20-something years now. Wherever you needed to go, we went. And I was like, yeah, that's true, honey. She goes, well, I'm moving here. Are you coming?
It was a done deal, huh?
It was a done deal. And I'm like, and so literally at that point, the company was me. And so I was like, honey, if you're serious, I'd come home in a heartbeat. I said, I think there's 3 real places we can do this company. It's San Francisco, Austin, or Boston. And of the 3, Austin is far and away my favorite. And if I get to live anywhere and work in Austin, it's going to be right here around Wimberley.
Well, and you and everybody else, it seems like it's a popular choice lately.
I know.
All the technology.
I was in Texan coming home, which is a little different.
That's a little different. That's exactly right.
God, and we were glad to get you home. I swear it'd been 20 years of you guys, never known where, just being far away.
It's turning into quite a hub here, and you're a welcome addition to it. Again, local returning. But tell us a little bit about why Fathom5, why you started it. And what your kind of mission statement is, and as much of layman's terms as
you can,
us simpletons can understand.
Explain this 4.0,
Yeah, so I'd always wanted to launch a technology company, and I had this fantastic opportunity. So my last 4 years on active duty in the Navy, I was out in California at the Naval Postgraduate School running a research center for Navy cyber warfare. So I was running a research team of 26 PhDs and lots of students doing some very, very interesting work. But one of the coolest opportunities of the whole thing was that there were 2 or 3 guys who were emeritus faculty in their 70s or 80s who were part of my research team, right? And they didn't work a whole lot in their 70s or 80s, but they walked up 5 flights of stairs. And think about Dr. Hirsch Loomis, right? It was like, if I can be Hirsch at 85, like
then
it's
you're
a
doing
life well
good.
lived,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And one of the coolest things about Hirsch and his friends is that in the 60s and 70s, they were instrumental to what then was the defense electronics industry.
There's some Loomis
Defense.
name floating around in that space a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that accredited to him?
There is, so yeah, out in my research center, Fred Terman, Hirsch Loomis, 3 or 4 other guys. And so what was fascinating was before there was Silicon Valley, there was the defense electronics industry. And it was all centered around the central coast of California because of the radio club they had out there that was affiliated with Stanford that ended up making all the radio tubes that went in the radar that was secret that they invented.
And Cal
to do World
Poly,
War II,
obviously,
and Cal
right?
Poly
Yep.
and those schools. And so the whole first 30 years of the electronics industry, the U.S. Department of Defense was the primary buyer of electronics. So
Really?
companies like Hewlett-Packard, Intel, Applied Materials, like all of the OG Silicon Valley weren't
Stromberg Carlson.
were not funded by venture capital. They were funded by defense research and development dollars, right? And so if you
Is that because of the end product that they were creating was not a consumer product?
there was no
or?
venture capital. Right, so if you go to downtown Austin today and you want to ask them about how to build a startup, the answer is, well, go get a pitch deck and get money from a VC, right? That's just the method.
Well, and the military's always been a driver of technology investment,
Absolutely.
historically.
Yeah.
Obviously, they want to make the coolest toys, and then they become commercial applications after that, right?
That's true. I mean, very few people realize that, like the iPhone, the original iPhone, about 90% of the basic science that went into the original iPhone was funded by the Department of Defense.
Yep.
I mean, think about it.
Wow.
The original glass on the iPhone was funded through Corning for an Army project to make scratch-proof rifle optics.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
GPS in the original iPhone was invented by the Navy, so a submarine could pop up anywhere in the world and know where it's at. Cell phone compression technology was invented by the Army so they could get more data over the airwaves. And then you've got the internet, which the original iPhone connected to was invented by then ARPA, now DARPA.
So my dad spent his entire 40-year business career with General Dynamics.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
ended
yeah.
up in the C-suite. So I grew up talking about stuff like that. I knew
Yeah.
Stromberg Carlson really well. That's why I have a cursory knowledge of what you're talking about in terms of the investment in that space and
Yeah.
technology innovation has always been in the military. So where from there, like, give us the shift from Navy to Fathom5 and why?
Yeah, absolutely. So in that whole time, I got to meet all these frankly, these cool old dudes involved in the early technology, and I realized you can go out and build a tech company today. I had a question in my mind, right? Can you go out and build a modern tech company in every regard, except for the fact that you don't take money from a venture capitalist? Right, because ultimately that robs some amount of the equity value from,
Or all of it.
or all of
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
Depending on, just watch Shark Tank and watch those entrepreneurs' faces when they realize they've got to give up 50% of their idea in order to actually get it off the ground, right?
Right.
So I said, I don't think the people, not just me, but everybody around me at Fathom5 that's going to work so hard for this vision should be forced into a situation where to launch this tech company, they have to give away that much value to some investor who may or may not have the long-term interests of the team in mind.
I like that last part, the long-term interests of the team,
Of
because
the
all
team.
too often, I think, for profit, the benefit sometimes gets altered.
Yeah.
I think of all the artists who, their story sometimes gets changed to make a better movie or something. It's almost like,
Yeah.
so I like that it keeps you're wanting to keep more of a pure environment and let your development continue to hold a vision pure.
That's
a
absolutely.
long-term vision.
And so for everybody out there, and there's a burgeoning tech community here in Wimberley and in Austin more proper. If there's one message I would love for people to take away is that it was experimental on my part of whether you could actually launch a tech company that has the right kind of exponential growth that is going to be recognized of, yeah, that's a real tech company, without taking venture capital funding. And we've just started our 5th year. This is the first quarter of our 5th operating year. We've doubled in revenue and size every year, kind of hitting that exponential growth. And so I'm here to tell people there is another way where you get to partner with the government, which is an unusual partner that doesn't take an equity interest in your growth. And so there is a new and viable way to launch a tech company, and it doesn't have to be in just defense. There's other ways to do it. But anybody who wants to follow with me after, that's out there on the radio, I would be more than happy to coach and mentor and talk to them about the details of that.
It's hard. It's really hard to do. I really think, I admire, certainly in this day and age where it seems like you can't launch a tech. I mean, you can't launch a tech company without outside money, other people's money. It's really difficult, especially technology venture capital. And they do. They take your firstborn. They take a slice of your. They take your arm. They take whatever. They take your company from you. I've had personal experience with that in my own business career, and I think you've got a great vision. How is that vision applied every day with your employees in terms of what you guys decide to do? Talk to us a little bit about your mission statement.
Yeah, so the mission statement, so you go from kind of a vision of like how to launch the company and, okay, what are we going to go do, right? And I looked around at the world and thought, the other trick is there's got to be some macro wave happening in the world, and you've got to kind of front lead that wave. So Cisco became Cisco, right, in the 90s when their valuations were just soaring because they were on the front edge of everybody's going to go build out the internet to everywhere. And they just happened to be the company that built the best, or at least the best marketed, switches and routers. So they actually, Cisco went out and built the backbone of the internet. As soon as the internet was there, you had companies like Facebook and then Apple kind of in the iPhone that said, okay, well, there's a robust internet. There's data to be connected to. Now we're going to build companies like Netflix, Google, Apple, and Facebook that take advantage of that infrastructure and build applications that people want. So that last wave was the business to consumer. It was Apple and Google and Netflix solving things for people's individual lives. How you listen to music, how you watch movies, how you shop, how you don't go to the encyclopedia anymore. You go online to find information, right? And so we looked out at the macro landscape in the world, and I said, I think the next major revolution is the way machines connect to that information layer. The people are actually pretty saturated. You may or may not know this. There are about 11 billion electronic gadgets in the world. So you've and it's held steady for like the past 5 or 6 or 7 years because it turns out everybody wants about one phone and maybe one iPad. And maybe one other thing. Maybe they want a Fitbit or something else. But you just turn into like too many.
That's actually shocking to hear that because it seems like everything is exponentially in the tech world just expanding. And so to hear that there's actually been a little stall out on sales for more devices.
That's right. You have people who aren't connected to the
What's
internet.
that telling us?
I think that's telling us that, people are saturated on how many things they want to carry around.
Yeah.
And so what's not saturated, right, is you'll hear the IIoT, Industrial Internet of Things, or Internet of Things.
Yes.
And so what's fascinating about this is that you have, people have a maximum amount of interfaces they're willing to look at, right? Their laptop, their phone, and maybe their iPad kind of caps out their 3. But a machine that isn't And so you have this exponential growth in the number of IIoT, Industrial Internet of Things sensors. And and the more things they're connected to, the deeper and richer the data that they can process. So there's no natural cap that we
Well,
see.
they don't have an attention span issue or a fatigue issue, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And it's like, I can't look at this anymore. It's
That's
like
right.
the machine doesn't do that.
So there's a guy named Klaus Schumer, and Klaus is the chair of the World Economic Forum. So they have a meeting in Davos every year that a lot of mucky-mucks go to, right? And they produce a paper, and so he wrote a book, and he said the next macro wave in the world is going to be the fourth industrial revolution, and it's going to be the informationalization. A lot of syllables in that word, right?
Yeah.
But it's going to be connecting the base layer of civilization, the industrial layer of civilization, to information and all of the capability that portends. So kind of boiling this down into, like you said, like layman's terms, there's over 7 billion people in the world, probably be 8 in all of our lifetimes, right? All of those people need clean water, safe food, and some amount of energy to stay warm or stay cool depending on the climate that they live in, right? And they need a transportation system for that energy and for that water and that food that gets it to them. If we keep, and this is the mission statement part, if we try and deliver food, water, and energy to those 8 billion people in the world, it will kill the planet.
Yeah.
Because
doing it the way we're doing it right now.
Because the systems that we have for growing that much food, cleaning that much water, and generating that much energy have too large of a resource input and too large of a footprint, residue, whether that be air pollution, water pollution, land
consumption, resource.
Exactly.
So it was almost a thought of there's got to be a better way. Kind of like at the beginning of your company, just like there's got to be a better way to fund this development. And now here with the way we're living, there's got to be a better way.
There's got to be a better way to do something that actually matters. Like I think it's super cool that Amazon wants to deliver deodorant to people with a drone, like right before they go out on a big date.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody that's important to that
That's
person.
great.
Moment.
That is an efficiency of one kind, right?
Right. But is that important?
Yeah.
Does that actually solve the existential problem of our age? And I'm thinking, no, not really.
Not so much. It's kind of handy.
Yeah.
But,
I guess Ashton Kutcher's proved you can go out on dates without having any deodorant at all, or even bathing. So he's working on that problem too, just in his own way.
That's absolutely right. So Industry 4.0. Right, is about taking the base layer that makes modern civilization possible and thinking about all the creative things that you might be able to do to optimize it. And so AI, machine learning, some of the tools like that have turned out to be the great optimizers. And how you might optimize it for lower resource input, greater productivity output, and better outcomes.
So are you talking about building? What kind of technology are we talking about
Let me give
here?
an
What are we
example.
going to need to? Yeah.
Let me give you an example. Vertical farming is not a sector that we're intimately involved in now, but it's a great example, and I'll give you some others in a minute. Right now, if you want to have strawberries in Paris, right? Like no strawberries grow in Europe in the winter, right? So that means they're coming from Brazil or some other southern hemisphere country. They have an exceptionally high carbon footprint associated with them. They have a spoilage amount that's coming with them, and the farming practices for growing those in the developing world is pretty tough on the land.
Yeah.
A lot of preservatives, a lot of getting everything.
That's
a lot
exactly
of problems, right?
That's exactly right. If you have a vertical farming system set up, right outside of Paris, you can grow the strawberries for Paris with like 80% less water.
Wow.
No soil impact. And because you grow them in a controlled environment with LED lighting, so you have low energy lighting input, 80% less water, and other control factors, so you're providing the perfect conditions for strawberries that don't require pesticides because you are growing them in the perfect conditions, right? And then they have no carbon footprint because they're right outside Paris. So the things that we're talking about are doing the things that human beings have had to do for thousands of years, and just doing them in better ways that have lower footprint.
Yeah.
So the weed guys in Denver, before I moved down here 6 years ago, the weed guys had started vertical weed growing, and the license, first licensed state
Medical
in the U.S.
marijuana
Right?
thing?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. They were growing in these old downtown warehouses and converting them, and they were doing these huge indoor grow houses and stuff. And some of those advancements have happened in that space.
Absolutely.
That have applied across the food space as well. What about systematic efficiencies created? When we come back from a short break, let's talk about the dark side of innovations around systems and things like that. Because there's a dark side to any innovative technology, right? There's the bright opportunity in the future. There's also the dark side of misuse, and we've seen that with some of the social platforms, right?
Absolutely.
So let's take a quick break here on KWVH Friday Far Side. Zach Staples joining us. We'll be right back.
Attend the wheat field that makes you bread. I bind the sweet veil, pluck the hens that make your bed. Mother Nature and Mother Earth are two of three women who dictate what I'm worth. Well, I'm the farmer, I work in the fields all day. Don't mean to love her, but I know it was meant to be this way.
So I think we're working on a couple things that are really exciting. So number one thing we're doing is helping people understand the opportunity space and ships. And I can talk. So another fun thing we can talk about, kind of the downsides of technology, and then maybe the funny thing is what about a shipping company in the middle of, if people look up their website, they're going to see ships. Why the heck are you in Austin?
And you got this event
Right.
in Miami that has something to do with that, right? Hack the machine. And
Oh, when's that one coming up?
June.
Coming up June.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
so
Cool.
well, that'll be a nice segue into that.
No, a lot of times when we go on break, I allow the YouTube Live or Facebook Live to just continue to play the music, but I had a feeling that this would be good airtime I didn't want to totally miss out on.
Yeah.
So we are still live right now,
Okay.
hanging out here with Zach Staples and D. Rambo in the studio.
Any interest in
on
talking
break.
about UFOs and Navy ship technologies and reconnaissance and that kind of stuff? We could go down that path.
I'd love to talk about that if you want.
So cool.
Yeah.
The stuff we've all like it's a new thing, right? Like all of a sudden we've discovered this in the last couple of years, just because the government's willing to admit that they're out there, and we've been talking about it.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. I think an interesting angle on that is I think the United States government is taking a slightly different approach than they were in the post-Cold War era about collaborative engagement with the public. Right? There's a time when they never would declassify target pod video off of an F-18. Right? But they did. And they're like, and we don't know what it is, and we've looked and we can't figure it out. Right?
That's a big step.
It's a big step, but it also goes to the opportunity space I was talking about collaborating. That the U.S. government is in a different position than they were 30 or 40 years ago.
Yeah, the MNRA vaccine development is a perfect example, right?
Yeah.
It's private industry funded by government.
Yes.
That collaboration had never taken place before in that way.
That's exactly right. So I think that
Two underwriters never back.
Yeah,
So
so we can definitely.
That's a great point to make, and I think we've had a great example of it with the vaccines
Yeah.
and with the UFO thing about, because we all love to hate the government, and there's lots more reasons to hate them every single day, right? And their history isn't very good with being honest and transparent with us.
Yeah.
But here are some behavior shifts that you're leveraging with your own relationship and how you do business in Fathom5. That's a great. Yeah, it's a great path.
Oh, and but he's got to talk about a little bit about his motorcycle before we're all said and done here today, because you're a motorcycle man. Look at that smile. Look at that smile.
We can always talk about the sleds for sure.
Oh, I love it. Okay, I'm gonna hook myself back.
I'm not gonna go shout out to my clan down across
Oh,
the road.
yes, you do. Yes, you do. All right, back into the motherboard.
That was a little Straw Hal and old Dirty Hank from the Bare Naked Ladies.
Love that band.
That's a good choice there, Johnny Mac. Thank you for that mix.
Best band name ever. Like,
It is.
Can you imagine
Bare
when they were a
Naked
small
Ladies,
town
yeah.
doing like bar gigs live tonight on stage, Bare Naked Ladies, and all the guys,
Yeah.
dude, I didn't know we did that here. I'll come.
And they're Canadians,
marketing
so that was
ploy.
like that was really kind of a risque for them. Funny stuff. We're back with Zach Staples, Fathom5 founder and CEO, and older brother of our own Abby Vosick.
Yeah, you know, it's
Yeah.
kind of interesting. These guys were so impressed with my guest, interview. They're like, I mean, just like we're taking it to the next level.
We're
with
like,
this
Gabby,
guest
how'd
out
you
here."
reel this guy in? You know, it's like kind of cool. Doesn't really fit our theme, but he's smart and interesting, and we want to talk to him, right? And then just today,
No
Moments
way.
ago.
like today at the beginning of the show, she goes, "Well, he's my brother," and we're like,
How do you
"Well,
think
you
I
never,
got this guy?
you never told us
I mean,
that."
this is the guy who's like in the working with the Department of Defense and in the,
You never told
all
us
these-
that, Abby. We were like blown away.
Yeah. So
And then my
that's-
mom was on talking about my socks before. I've never had that intro before. That
You
was
got to have
fantastic.
that little bit of humble, right?
family to keep you real, right? Keep you grounded. Oh my gosh.
One of the
Yeah.
funny things, I went to the Naval Academy, which was pretty neat. But one of the kind of interesting social constructs of going to the Naval Academy is everybody you went to college with got hired by the same company. Like, think about that.
Yeah, that's a good
Kind
point.
of weird, right?
That's a good point.
So,
You're not worried about who, job interviews and stuff. You still do them, right? For,
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
for
for different
positions and
positions,
stuff. Yeah, but that's an interesting
So
point.
it's kind of that keep you humble thing too,
Yeah.
because now all my friends, I got out right around 22 years, but now all my friends are captains. A couple of them getting promoted to admiral, and we're like, yeah, but we all knew you when you're 19 too.
Yeah, you're not all that. That's funny. So
love it.
we were talking a little bit about, in the break about, the positive and the negative. There's a
Yeah.
double-edged sword with innovative technology of any kind.
Yeah.
Certainly growing food in a more humane way, less resource allocation, all those kind of things are incredibly positive. There is a dark side to innovation of technology.
Yeah.
We've seen it in the social space, right, with social apps and their influence on children and what they created. And talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'd love to. I think this is absolutely fundamental to kind of how people everywhere think about this technology arc we're on over the next 20 years, right? And key to that technology arc is this idea of artificial intelligence, machine learning, advanced statistical reasoning, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
There is the possibility that AI might be the most important technology that human beings have invented in thousands and thousands of years, 50,000 years, right? There's also the possibility it might be one of the last technologies that human beings have to invent because the technology invents the next technology, right? So
And it might find us to be just disposable.
Yeah,
So that's part of
the
it.
Terminator kind of part. When I hear AI, I mean, I get a little squeamish, and there's guys out there like Elon Musk saying, "Beware, AI is dangerous." So I mean,
Yeah.
is AI scary?
I think the way, frankly, I'm going to be really, really candid. I think the way that artificial intelligence has been applied in the first 10 years or so since we really figured out how to start building things with it has been, and this is a pretty harsh judgment, has been ethically wrong. And I'll and elaborate on that a little bit. So
Yeah.
30 years ago, right? I've got an old, like, hardbound book on my bookshelf from the late 70s talking about the potential of neural networks to classify, to understand, inputs and classify them as into categories. So think about a picture as a cat, dog, person classifiers. So we knew that neural networks had that potential 30 years ago, 40 years ago. What we didn't have was a way to train those networks to be good classifiers. So as soon as they got deep, as soon as you had one feeding the other, so if you wanted to think of these as neurons, as soon as we strung 3 to 4 or 12 in a row, we didn't have a way to train them. In 2012, there was a guy named Jeffrey Hinton, who is a researcher, who actually published the first paper on how to train, on an effective, efficient way to train neural networks, and it was called backpropagation. And the key summary of the technology is that you can send an image through, and let's just use this cat or dog image, right? So you send a picture of a cat or dog in, and it tells you whether that's a picture of a cat or a dog. Okay. When it was wrong, Jeff Hinton found a way to figure out which neuron in the path had steered it the wrong way and tweak it a little bit so it would steer it in the right way. And then with tens of thousands of passes, you could train those neurons to accurately say cat and dog. And now you get things that can, classifiers that can identify faces and types of objects and everything else, right? That's what's making autonomous driving possible and everything else.
Simple terms, almost like chain of command or a blockchain idea, right?
Yeah.
Where there's a sequence of transactions, if
That's
you will,
right.
from one neuron to another, and that
That's right.
team process. Somewhere you've got to coach them all in the right direction.
And you mentioned something. Blockchain is very similar in that it's a linearly chained sequence of events. The one important difference, for example, because blockchain is one of those technologies that gets talked about a lot, right?
Right.
The fundamental difference with blockchain is that it's immutable. You can't go back and tweak anything in the history.
You can't rewrite the code of it.
Right.
You got to, yep.
And a good neural network is always tweaking to make the outputs more accurate. So you have this technology kind of in 2012, we're like, oh, wow, you can actually start to do something we thought was possible.
It's like an organism almost, right? It's
Yeah,
an artificial organism in the way it thinks.
That's where I start to differ a little bit.
Okay.
I think there's groups like the Singularity University out in California that wants to push that. And frankly, one of the reasons I was happy to come back to Texas to build this is because I was ready to get out of the groupthink that we're going to get to generalizable AI. So, so all my friends out on Kirkendall Road, we live out in the country, and so I like to think of it in a different way. Is that we've got a math trick called backpropagation.
Okay.
And backpropagation is good at a thing, at helping us build classifiers and a couple of other kind of pretty simple things, right? And then what happened was we're like, okay, how are we going to use this in the real world and in commercially? Yeah. And so what you ended up with is you had a series of what I consider to be irresponsible social experiments with, should we use this to pick your friends? Should we use this to try and decide whether you're going to commit a crime? Should we use this to decide what kind of music you like and block you out from hearing artists that you might have discovered if you had found music the old-fashioned way by just going out and listening to bands, right? And so
they're classifying us.
They're all of the modern applications of AI are classifying us. And so the worst idea
to better
ever,
sell me, really. I mean, probably not for my benefit even.
No, you are the product because when you don't pay for it, you are the product.
Yeah.
Right?
We've definitely heard that.
Yeah.
Right.
So you think about this. So you have this technology with this massive potential. And the opportunity, and the sci-fi guys have articulated how bad it could go for 30 or 40 years.
Sure.
And then the first places it comes out in industry is in all of these, in social networking and in all of these other things that are about making choices for people. That was an ethical crossroads that we went the wrong direction. So we said, stop. We're only 10 years into this new technology, right? Over the next 10 to 20, we'll figure out exactly how to control it a little better. You know what I mean? And
how to apply it maybe a little better.
And so we said, let's take this big idea about the fourth industrial revolution. And let's come down and say, you know what? If I can find an artificial intelligence that can classify the best operating mode for a machine, and it uses 5% less energy, or pick a route for a ship that crosses the ocean and avoids heavier seas, so it uses 5% less energy, like there is no ethical risk in that. Right? So we can understand how to apply the technology, do things in the world that are measurably better, and avoid the kind of the ethical dilemma where we're at on all the other social applications.
Turn it outward to solve
Yeah.
problems rather than turning it inward to manipulate ourselves.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Right?
Interesting, because that's where it's been focused.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And that's what people are afraid of, is that machines can get to the point where, you know, they can manipulate us to the degree where they completely control us and we become irrelevant and blah, blah, all the science fiction like you talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's use it to solve problems and focus outward.
Yes. So we're about to publish a white paper, and when we do, I'll give you guys a link, and would love for you to help us share it. We're about to publish a white paper that makes this argument that, and again, this is going to be a big change. There's room for lots of people on the front of this wave, right?
Okay.
But we believe that not only is industrial technology a coming wave, it's also an ethically better way for millions of really intelligent people to launch their career. And so I get worried about young people in school now who are coming out for their first job, and the best AI jobs are doing creepy stuff at Facebook.
Yeah, they don't want to work for Google or
Right,
Facebook.
and if you go to work for Google doing AI, you're more than likely targeting ads.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, frankly, it brings me back to this idea of work-life balance. You know, and I think that this is just another like societal thing that is, you know, applicable regardless of industry. But there's been a ton of discussion, particularly out in Silicon Valley, about work-life balance. That's where it kind of originated from, right? And it occurred to me that, you know, our grandfather, you know, ran cattle in the afternoons and built things with his hands at GD, in fact, outside of Fort Worth, right? And so could derive personal satisfaction because he felt like he was doing something positive. He was building things to protect the United States with his hands in the day, and he was out, you know, raising food in the evenings. If what you do with your day has intrinsic value to it, then you are balanced.
Yeah.
Right? And if what you're doing in the day, you know, is a bit treacherous, like you're targeting ads at people to sell them stuff they don't need, or you're aware that the social algorithms you're constructing to show people content is really designed to just capture their eyes so you can sell more ads, you have to have something else in your life to feel like a balanced human.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing in the day is weighing the scale down the wrong way.
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? That just makes such good sense.
Let's take a little break. We
Okay.
could talk so much with Zach about all this stuff.
Loving
We have to pay our underwriters some attention here. Let's take one last break before we go into the 9 o'clock hour. When we come back, we'll set up your events coming up and how you guys are setting up for the next couple of years. We'll be right back on Friday Farside, KWVH.
She won't call. It's just another call from home. And you'll get it and be gone, and I'll be crying. And I'll be begging you, baby, beg you not to leave. But I'll be left here waiting with my heart on my sleeve. Oh, for the next time we'll be here. Seems like a million years, and I think I'm dying. What do I have to do to make you see? She can't love you like me. Why don't you stay? I'm down on my knees. I'm so tired of being lonely. Don't I give you what you need when she calls you to go? There's one thing you should know. We don't have to live this way. Baby, why don't you stay? You keep telling me, baby, there will come a time when you'll leave her arms and forever be in mine. But I don't think that's the truth, and I don't like being used, and I'm tired of waiting. It's too much pain to have to bear. To love a man you have to share. Why don't you stay? I'm down on my knees. I'm so tired of being lonely. Don't I give you what you need when she calls you to go? There is one thing you should know. We don't have to live this way. Baby, why don't you stay? I can't take it any longer, but my will is getting stronger, and I think I know just what I have to do. I can't waste another minute after all that I put in it. I've given you my best. Why does she get the best of you? So the next time you find you wanna leave her bed for mine, why don't you stay? I'm up off my knees. I'm so tired of being lonely. You can't give me what I need when she begs you not to go. There is one thing you should know. I don't have to live this way. Baby, why don't you stay?
A portion of this program is sponsored by Los Olivos Market, a place for people that love music, good food, and Texas fun. You can visit them at 13904 Ranch Road 12, right in the Wimberley Square, and enjoy their daily wine tastings, beer flights, and delicious food, as well as artisanal products to enjoy at home.
Support for Wimberley High School sports comes from Ball Brothers 1-800-PAINTING. For more than 38 years, providing professional interior and exterior painting for your home or business. Ball Brothers Painting strives for complete customer satisfaction and always guarantees their work. Go Texans!
KWVH and Texan Athletics are supported by the Hays City Store. You can fill up on Texas comfort food, handcrafted cocktails, local beer and wines, and live music too. Hays City Store is located at the intersection of Texas 150 and RM 3237. An easy drive from Wimberley, Canyon Lake, and Dripping Springs. Meet you at the Hays City Store. Yes, please.
Sustaining members give a small donation each month, debited from their credit or debit card. While the donation is usually smaller each month, the fact that you make the donation each month leaves a lasting impact all year long. Sustaining members will be recognized on kwvh.org and recognized on air throughout the year. Donate today and become a sustaining member at kwvh.org.
Hey, welcome back.
Oh Man, this show is blowing my mind
We're
today.
sitting with Zach, your older bro, and he's a genius. He's a genius. We're having a good time talking about this, that, and the other, and some scary topics and some wonderful topics, and we're going to focus on the positive side of things. But I looked at your website, Zach, and AI meets grease.
Yeah.
Please elaborate.
Yeah, right. So we begun there, but yeah. So what we're doing specifically, right?
What are you doing?
Is the first thing we're really focusing on is a series of gateways. So at the end of the day, you have all of this deployed industrial infrastructure, whether that infrastructure is in ships, which we deal with a lot, or power plants or water treatment facilities. And those machines operate the way those machines operate, right? And then at some point, we want a more intelligent control layer that can actually analyze the data of how that machine is operating in detail and optimize it for some better outcome. Maybe it's more clean water at the same energy, maybe it's less energy, right? And so getting data off of what they call operational technologies. So think big machines.
Big machines.
Oil, pipelines, et cetera, right?
Oh, okay.
Railway system.
Et cetera, right? Getting data off of operational technology, making all that data available in an IT system, an information technology system where AI and these optimizers live is a real challenge. And so that challenge is driven by the fact that when we had the IT revolution, right, there was really only 3 or 4 operating systems or protocols you had to match. It was either Windows, it was Mac, it was Linux, and now maybe there's iOS and Android added to that mix. But that's constrained to like 3 to 5 different patterns you have to match to build something that works in that environment. The OT world is crazy, man. There's like 20, 30, 300 different ways that OT systems produce data. So Fathom5 gateways can connect to a variety of things and pull that data up in a way, you start getting geek data science terms that's normalized, tagged, storable, retrievable, streamable, batchable, et cetera, so that you can have new analytics reason against how best to run that set of machine. And we build the gateways in the middle that make that
Very
possible.
cool. Yeah, that's so very cool.
You were telling me about, I'm thinking of the example when you had was it the Minister of Defense for Thailand? You took him out on
Indonesia.
Indonesia.
Yeah. So we've had some people that have been pretty interested in what we do from all over. And,
I've wondered, who hires Fathom5?
Right.
And to solve,
so
their problems.
A really fascinating one. So so that project is we're working with a company in New Jersey called Ocean Power Technologies. And so this is just fascinating. This is where our gateways really come into practice. OPT builds buoys that harvest wave energy. So as waves go up and down, they have 100 or more patents, maybe dozens and dozens of patents that allow them to transition wave energy into green power.
Cool.
Yeah, and so their new mission is to be, their words, the data access layer to the ocean. Right? You can put one of these buoys almost anywhere in the world, and it can drive a payload. Whether that's payload senses the water off the Great Barrier Reef or in the Galapagos Islands to make sure that some of our most important spots in the world are being ecologically preserved. You don't have to run a cable to this thing. It can connect to a satellite. It can run all the algorithms you have, and so we build the gateway technologies for OPT that allow the sensors to communicate with the cloud and actually do these sorts of things.
I have an understanding. I have an understanding of that to a degree. I grew up in the software space. 20 years ago, we were talking about object-oriented programming, where different disparate databases could talk to one another, as you mentioned, that run on different systems, and you had to have a gateway. That's exactly what you had to have, a gateway that did the initial talking and connected those different databases. So somewhat familiar with that. Fascinating when you apply it in an industrial way, which is exactly what you guys are trying to do.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So,
like,
for
how
example,
do these systems talk?
How did that benefit the buoy system too? Like on a practical matter, by putting your information systems
on a practical matter, right? I'll give you a great example. In a practical matter, you have some places where you need to have, let's say, for a national security purpose or just to monitor a fishing area, right? Long line illegal fishing is tough on the ocean, and the economic exclusion zone of a country to regulate fishing goes to like 200 miles, right? That is a lot of ocean to surveil, especially if you have to pay boats to drive around out there.
Yeah.
You could put a buoy out there that powers itself with a maritime domain awareness package on it. So that's a radar, a camera, a couple other pieces of electronics. It can monitor that swath of ocean for you 24/7 without gas, without you going out.
Wow,
and do
that's
it.
huge.
Push
Yeah.
the data back, and now you can actually do fisheries protection to make sure that the ocean resources are being properly protected and managed.
And that's actually what they were seeking out assistance
Absolutely.
with.
Yeah.
From you guys, but
So that technology deployed lots of places in the world is, can again do something valuable in the world. Protect fisheries through the application of industrial systems, radars, cameras, other electronics, and we're creating gateways with OPT that allow that data to end up in the cloud where people are involved, right? And people are making the decisions. So the AI that recognizes, transposes, and transforms the data is not making the decision. It's presenting data in a way that is combined and consolidated so people can make better decisions.
So I heard something earlier in the off break talking about motorcycles, and we've only got a few minutes left here, and it piqued my interest as
You bet.
as a motorcycle guy. Talk to me.
Love it. So there's a transition to electric motorcycles and electric cars in general. Industrial technology for us spans a pretty big gap. So we talked a little about the AI piece of this. The other side of this is the grease piece of this.
Yeah.
I also believe that starting in like 1960, almost all of the nation's research dollars, whether it was from the National Science Foundation or in grants and other things, or even corporate research, started to flow what I do little air quotes around called the electricals. It was to electrical engineering, computer science, applied materials engineering for silicon wafers, et cetera. And that money, it was a zero-sum game. That money was coming away from investments in mechanical engineering. And building machines. So the transmission in your car is more or less the invention that came out around 1940, 1950, and not much has changed. We believe that the best machines we can build haven't been shown to the marketplace yet. So we've got about 20 patents on the grease side of this for actuators, for gearboxes that are more efficient, most torque density, most compact. And so we've got a motorcycle we're going to be demoing here in a month or so that actually shows same electric bike, 30% more range, because we're changing the machine side of it. So same battery,
No
30%,
clutching, no manual clutching.
no manual clutching, same battery, 30% farther because you change the machine side. And then there's obviously it's us, right? So there's a little bit sophisticated control algorithm in the computer, but again,
Super cool.
but we're putting the rider on a more exciting ride
Yeah.
at less resource input, right? So again, it's about doing something for the people that with better technology.
it sounds brilliant.
Yeah,
I'm going to borrow that word.
it might be
Brilliant
hard.
machines. That is so cool. I love that you are updating this outdated technology, bringing it into the 21st century here, and doing it with some heart. Can I say, that's what
The nicest thing you've ever said about your brother.
You can say that about your brother. That's right.
I love it. Solving real problems that matter. And you sure took the edge off of AI for me. I liked when you kept saying that we're going to create better data for people to make decisions from. Don't worry, we're not putting AI in charge of making all the decisions, but deciphering the information and presenting it to us better.
We've been focused on the industrial side of things. There's so much about AI with regards to healthcare and biogenetic technology and all that kind of stuff. It's crazy. We could go on and on talking about this, and I know that you're passionate about that as well. So before we go, let's make the commitment that you'll come back with us and spend another hour and have another conversation about this. 'Cause we'd love to have
I'd
you.
love to. We do a lot of work on ships, which is kind of funny for a company at Austin. We barely even touched on that.
Yeah.
I mean, if I go to fathom5.co, I'm going to see a
gonna
lot
see
of
ships.
ship action. Is there just talk to us briefly about that?
Yeah, I'll give you the kind of the 30-second version. Is obviously I came out of a Navy background. But for me, ships are, again, we're thinking about what is the right technology to pioneer and experiment with, and what is the right place to do it, right? And one of the really cool things about a big ship is that inside that 1,000 feet, you've got water purification, electrical power generation, power distribution, fuel management. So all of the systems that you would need in the broader industrial space are represented inside that 1,000 feet. So ships give us a very compact market to develop some of these technologies in.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah. So Trident sub that sits on the bottom of the ocean for a year and a half without resurfacing needs all of that infrastructure, just like a city does.
But not even Navy. I mean, the Navy has about 200 ships, right? Biggest shipping companies in the world, CMA CGM, for example, out of France, they operate 600 ships.
Yeah.
So you think about that. There's such an amazing opportunity to develop and pioneer these technologies in the maritime industry that's kind of one of the first market niches we're looking at for this. And then I just love motorcycles too.
Yeah. I'm gonna miss. I'm glad I'm the age I am, because I frankly am gonna miss the throaty roar of my Triumph, and the shifting and the power behind that. It's gonna be a tough jump for me to move to electric. But man, I'm so excited to have you in, and we've so enjoyed having.
There's a few things though, before he rolls off, that I know that are exciting coming up, and just like especially your Hack the Machine.
Well, a couple
Talk
things.
to us about
so we're going to be at,
that's coming up, right?
Yeah, we're going to be at Hack the Port in Fort Lauderdale. So you can Google Hack the Port. We're going to be at Hack the Port in Fort Lauderdale week after next. And then in June, we're running a big event on behalf of the Navy that's open to the public, that if people want to get hands-on with this, it's called Hack the Machine. And you can Google Hack the Machine. It's the first one that'll come up, hackthemachine.ai, and get some more details about that going on in Miami. So doing a couple events in Florida coming up here in the near future.
So cool.
This is so cool and so fun. So guys, those who are curious-minded and software-minded and all of this, get involved, check it out, and grease-minded, because this is where AI and grease meet. Zachary, thank you so much for making the time to come to share with us and our community on our community radio station.
Yeah, I love that you called him Zachary. Your older brother, Zachary. I love it. That's so cool. Zach Staples, CEO, Fathom5. We really appreciate you guys coming in, and it was nice to meet your lovely wife, Alyssa, who had to leave us early. But I just want to say thanks on behalf of our listeners, and thanks, Abby, for bringing your bro in.
Having a cool bro, right?
Yeah. You guys have a great weekend. We're going to turn it over to Coach and crew.
Take care.
See you next Friday.
Let's wrap it up on the live.
Oh, absolutely.
Good morning. I don't heard 20 plus.
20 plus, yeah.
Yeah, so how many exactly?
That was quite a good little show, Deester. Oh, man. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. That was a lot of fun. Check out Fathom5.com. Otherwise, we got to get out of here and let them change the shift, right? Here. We are always on Fridays from 7 to 9. I should have.
I'll ask him now.
I'm not rolling oats. So right there.
And in that live,